Greetings, this is Frosty Thundertrod, Telnor Beastmaster of the Thunder Guard. Welcome to Last Week in Testing for October 19th to October 25th. We had a fairly eventful week on PTR this week. We've had several testings of raid bosses. I participated in one of them. I did a focus test against the Scorpion raid boss. Generally, I found that pug groups really can't do that boss very well. It was also having some problems with the ads that it spawns. The tanks were unable to hold aggro, and basically, any time that the ads spawned, it was just a group wipe. We did have one guild in the raid, but that wasn't a full raid of the same guild. So most of us were just pug members like me. I used my summoner in that, and the summoner did okay in it. It's hard to really give any good feedback since I haven't played the summoner enough to really consider myself good at it. But every other time PTR came up this week, I was in messing around with my summoner, which is a very interesting class and coming along nicely. Not much has happened over here on live. We're still sitting here in a holding pattern waiting for patch 0.17 to come out, which I think might be coming Friday with the uh, live stream, which is going to be about the summoner again. So I think patch 0.17 and the summoner will come to live this Friday. They also did some node siege settlement siege testing, and it kept going to be very one-sided, either winning or defending. I think the defenders won more than the attackers, but every siege was very one-sided. So I guess there's some more balancing to do in that part, to try to get the sieges to be more. Ideally, they want it to be a very close run thing, not a complete stomp from the get go. So there'll be more work on the settlement sieging. And they've improved the anvil starting area quite a bit so that we will no longer be in the position I'm in with this character right here, because right now I'm kind of stuck for gear. I've done all that I can do, and unless I go to the Riverlands, there's just no source of gear for me here in the anvils. I can't make it because it requires oak, which does not spawn in the anvils to make the armor. I've got pretty good weapons. I was able to make pretty good weapons, but I'm limited on my armor options. Except for light armor. The light armor is the one type of armor that you can make in the anvils. I'm hoping that in November, with patch 0.18, the Harbingers, there will be a server wipe. Because another thing they finally fixed on the PTR is they finally fixed the exploit with the harvesting, where you could basically guarantee, epic or heroic quality harvest every time you harvest by just knowing where they spawn. Static node rarity is now gone. Because I even found that here where getting a rare was super common. It was actually uncommon to get common grade materials. It was very easy to get purple or orange gray, purple or orange, grade materials when harvesting. Just by, if you got one, just harvest every other one around it, and it would be pretty much the same grade. So That has kind of ruined the economy here on live, so I'm hoping there will be a wipe to fix it because at this point I don't think there's any way to really save the economy. Plus, with a introduction of the summoner class, a lot of people are going to want to start over to roll the summoner, such as myself. I mean, that's the reason why I have not really bothered leveling up this character whatsoever. I just come in, run around, and look at different patch changes every once in a while. Especially since I know that the summoner is so close, and every time the PTR comes up, I get to mess around with it a little bit. I really am liking the summoner at low levels. PTR, I managed to get myself pretty well geared up since I started in the Riverlands instead of the Anvils. So with the summoner in, that completes all of the archetypes. And then we can start working on the augment system so we can get our full true classes. And there's still two more races to add. The Renkai Orcs and the Telnar, which of course will be my race. So even after I get on a summoner, I'll reroll one more time to get Telnar, so I can finally be the Telnar summoner, and then eventually, once the ranger gets added to the augment tree, I can truly become the Telnar Beastmaster of the Thunder Guard. So, I mean, it was a fairly eventful week in testing, but not much to describe outside of the game. I've done a video on the summoner, which I go through the entire summoner skill tree. But as a short recap, it's a unique class. It has a very strong healing capability, but it's a kind of focused healing. So if you're focused on just keeping like one person to tank alive and you have the spiritualist summon out, yeah, you can heal the tank like crazy, especially since the healing doesn't drain your mana, it drains your pet's mana. And then you get a little bit of extra healing ability by doing damage, which returns back to your group. The summoner is kind of like the bard in a way that you have to be a specialist summoner in order to really get the most out of it. And some of the descriptions aren't really good, like Hex. If you listen, but reading the description doesn't give you a good description of what it is. In truth, it's a sticky grenade. You stick heck, you attack, you apply Hex, which is basically your sticky grenade, and then it starts a timer, then explodes for massive damage. That's not quite the way it's described, but that's the way it works. And then if you want to shorten the timer, you can use Disintegrate, or you can use basic attacks from both you and your summons. Another problem with Summoner, I think, is it's got too many AoEs. Way too many AoEs. It's really hard to focus on just one target, which I think was part of the problem we were experiencing in that raid that I tested, is since everybody was throwing at AoEs because most of our abilities are AoE based, it was very hard for the tank to maintain aggro. So I think we need to cut back on the AoEs overall, because even just a basic weapon attack, here, that was an AoE. I mean, it doesn't look like an AoE, but it is. Now, my wand, however, is not an AoE. The book is an AoE. So that's one thing that's going to happen a lot in raid groups, is that if you're a weapon user, you're probably going to use your ranged weapon for the most of the time, to avoid, pulling ads, and you won't be using a book. You'll be using a wand or a bow. The physical wand is actually kind of cool. It's a You don't really expect that in a ranger, but it does work well. So that's all I have for this week, or to talk about for last week. Thank you very much for watching.